Okay, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, we got a newspaper review here. Chikudi Abuja. Good morning, Chikudi.
Yeah, how you doing?
Very well.
Good morning.
Morning.
I always like your crisp, matter-of-fact, business-like, stance to presentation. Victor.
Good morning.
Am I making you jealous?
Well, somehow.
Your elegant composure is also something to talk about here.
And I like your headgear.
You do? Flattery will get you everywhere. Not get you nowhere.
Including to your farm and barns.
All right, so let's take a look at the stories on the front pages of the newspapers that we have this morning. Let's begin with the New Telegraph, and it leads with this one: Labour to federal government, workers apprehensive, pension funds, retirement security. Not meant for government projects, alarmed that government accessed nearly 70% of funds without consulting stakeholders. Details on page 2 of the New Telegraph. Above the lead story, we have FAC. Federal government, states, local governments shared 1.208 trillion naira as April revenue. Beside that, we have Edo, Ondo, Gubar, ensure violence-free campaigns, INEC tells security agencies and governors. This one, Evans, I'm sure you remember. The headline here says, attempted kidnap. Evans, co-defendant, opt for plea bargain. The rider, Catholic priest kidnapped in Anambra. All right, let's look away from that. Now, below the picture story, suspend new electricity tariff. Senate tells NEC. Riders mandates committee to probe ministers' 2 trillion naira subsidy requirement claim. Approves creation of Northwest Development Commission. And next to that, we have Emirates to resume flights to Nigeria October 1. Finally this morning, quite a number of headlines right here. We have troops recovered 1.6 million liters of stolen crude illegally refined AGO. Details on page 5. So I need to quickly move away from the New Telegraph now, but much more on the front page and, of course, in the inside pages of the New Telegraph. The blueprint is next, and it leads with Nigerian national Buzu wanted over Zamfara killings. That's according to the DHQ. Defense headquarters, if you like. And then we have troops neutralize 127 terrorists, gunmen kidnap 135, kill 3 in Gora Namaye. All right, you can read up that story, continuation on page 8 of the blueprint. Above the lead story, we have here sports. Under 17 AFCON qualifier, Gold Eaglets held by Burkina Faso in opening match. I'm just looking below the picture story. We have some other headlines here. We won't violate pension regulations to finance infrastructure. That's according to the federal government. Tinubu's first anniversary. Shetima Idris orders to speak on renewed hope agenda. Details on page 9, and that's happening today. 36 assembly speakers back state police. Finally, in a green strip at the bottom of the front page of the blueprint, we have NDIC obtains winding up order for 96 microfinance banks and PMBs in liquidation. Details on page 20. So that's it. Victor, what you got?
All right, leadership tells us here with the major headline, APC chairmanship, search for Ganduje's replacement begins. North Central governors working to get competent hand. CPC likely to get slot, that's the CPC camp. Presidency's silence worsens embattled chairman's travails. That story is on page 7. And while at it, on page 18, opposition parties strategize ahead of 2027. And just above the nameplate, no plans to use pension funds illegally. That's according to the federal government. And then Senate passes Northwest Development Commission bill. You can find that on page 15. And somewhere in between, FG stops marriage of 100 orphan girls. And another, 40% of healthcare facilities lack adequate power supply. You can find those on page 2. Salary arrears, ASU threatens no pay, no work. You can get that on page 6. No pay, no work. And I think that's about it, except for the picture story showing that warm handshake between President Tinubu and Bassirou Faye of Senegal. Chooks the boy.
I read a piece where Oshodeke was talking about if you could vote so much money for infrastructure, from Monday to about Wednesday, the council actually sat to talk about many projects that have been begging to be worked on. One of them, I want to happily say, was the Lokoja to Auchi to Urumi access. Did you see the viral video of a trailer that, when I've been talking about that road, it would seem as if I was saying it because I was involved. I drove through the road about a month ago, and it was nice. So, but Osodok is saying that if you could put so much money in infrastructure, and the lecturers' demands since 2009 are still hanging there. I think the government has actually paid about 4 months of their 8-month salary, so we are moving. The lecturers matter, very important. The roads also very important, because the commerce of this country depends largely on roads. Our rail system has not been developed properly yet. That's the bit I want to say on that.
Well, ASU is asking to become one of the projects.
Oh, yeah. No.
And it's not too much to ask.
Yeah. Self-preservation is the first law in nature.
Because if
ASU is not talking out of turn.
And then the number of months and how many...
I understand. I want a return to those days when the citadels were actually seats for research that led to national development. So they're not talking out of turn. I'm just saying that the projects are also important, because the axis I just mentioned, if you know the amount of goods that have been halted in terms of freighting, you'll know that it contributes to poverty, for the people. No intention to illegally use pension funds. That's coming from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu. First of all, it's not. I don't think it's illegal for government to look for funds from where it can legitimately get funds. What we should be concerned about is if the pension funds begin to get endangered, even come close to being endangered, we should never ever undertake action that does not salute the effort of our elderly people who are now in retirement.
Very true.
So
and
caution is the word.
Exactly, caution. You see, asking whether it's illegal, the pension fund these days has a contribution from both the employee and the employer.
Yes.
Unlike when it was just the employer, putting money together and paying pension. Now, for some workers, they say that it is not right for the government to borrow that money, because the employee's money is part of it, right? So you can't borrow my money without consent from me in particular.
Now you're talking about consent.
Yes.
Fine.
So that's on one hand, because it's not just like money put together by the government alone. Now the employee is contributing a part. So you can't borrow my money without consent from me. That's one. Then two, what's the guarantee that it will be paid back on time?
I think that's the more valid one, because if you say consent, there are managers of the fund.
Thank you, Victor. I was going there. It's the managers of the funds
managers,
that actually...
Managers...
No.
Worker.
No, you are saying...
You took it from my lips.
No, you are saying they can't consult every worker, but if the manager, right, of the fund wants to use my money, I mean, there's a contract. That's why you're using a particular pension fund manager.
Actually, the manager of your funds is using your money. That is why you get interest on it.
Profits.
Good. That's why you get interest. But now that the federal government is coming into it, it's different. It's different when the managers do business with it. All right, and then get interest, and then they pay you and all of that. Now they are lending to the government, and Is there going to be interest, number one? Then number two, we know the way
There's
government...
already interest,
there will be interest
in your pension fund.
Will government be paying interest to the managers?
Well, I don't know the details, but the managers are using the money and making sure that you get something.
And then repayment plan, because we know government changes.
The worry is the payment.
No.
The worry
is the payment.
My dear,
how will it be repaid?
The reason you ask these questions is that...
No, these are concerns of workers I've spoken to.
Is that governance in Nigeria does not seem to obey natural continuity.
Otherwise,
incumbency has nothing to do with what government decides to do for the people.
Because government is a continuum.
President Nyere takes over from President Chukwudi, and life becomes flawless on and on and on. It's because of the distortions and the African scene scenario that you talk like this.
Because
that's why
the fear,
concerns are valid.
Yeah, because the fear of the worker
that's
now.
Why the concerns should be taken, fairly seriously, not necessarily valid.
Well, seriously, because their fear now is hope we don't return to the era where you retire and you can't get your money. Because even at the moment, the laws as regards pension management, when you retire, you don't get everything. There's a certain, and all of that you have to reach with your managers and all of that. So some workers are even saying it's still not fair, it's still not okay, for them to be able to manage life, considering what they get at retirement. Now, with this borrowing and all of that happening, what happens? You may now retire, and then they're telling you, oh, you have to wait for another 5 years to get your money. So there are so many issues.
You said you may now retire. Remember, we do not speculate.
You will retire.
Goodwill. You want to acquire illegitimate certainty. That's not fair. Good news. Okay, sorry.
Let's look at this one quickly before we go. 40% of healthcare facilities lack adequate power supply.
I don't like you taking me to health all the time, because the vigil I've been doing at National Hospital after an accident, showed me so many things. It is sordid in our hospitals. I said here the other time, a doctor I saw writing, doing something on the case note of my daughter. I said, why are you spending so much time writing on just one case? He said, because the person taking over from me must have details to continue management of this patient. I respected them. Apart from medicine, apart from medicine, I don't know whether journalism and NMA, whether we're still as diligent as we should be professionally. The NMA, they are doing well. NUJ and the NBA, they may need to re-professionalize. These doctors are still very diligent. And one of them broke my heart. He said, there are two sets of people in this hospital now, not National Hospital, please. It's either people who are on the verge of jackbuying, or people who are filling papers to leave the health sector of Nigeria. And I cried silently. Nurses are more affected than doctors. So it is not good news in our health institutions. But remember, just the other time, $1 billion or so the presidency was asking for to upgrade. So I always want the water to be the glass to be half full of water. That's how my father trained me. They call me the incurable optimist. It will get better. Things always get better. It starts from how you think.
It will get better. And when you go out there, go get yourself a cup of tea.
Are you shooting me out?
Have a great day, Chukwudi.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for being a well-lettered man with figurative expressions again today.
No one wins all the time. I got to lose sometimes.
All right, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation. It's on consumer credit. Stay with us.